Okay, here we are on tape 2 on the development of the psyche information. And we were just finishing up on the other tape, and I was just beginning to talk about how certain kinds of thinking leads to disease, breakdowns, closed-mindedness, and so forth like that. But there is some good news. So far I've talked about a lot of the problems you can have, because if we don't identify the problems, we don't really know how we're going to affect a solution. But there's some good news to the idea that anyone can be helped to some degree. Even if their mind is filled with all sorts of troubles, their thinking is illogical and so forth, anybody can pull it out. It just may take more work for us, some people than others. All he really needs to pull it out is a slow, systematic system of finding new knowledge, building security, and the recognition that it's truly possible. These are very important factors. Let me go over that again. First thing to do is we need to find the knowledge, get access to the knowledge, new knowledge that's going to replace the old. If we currently have a head full of stuff that's just way off track, of course most of us get pretty closed-minded when we think we're being attacked. You know, if somebody thinks we're crazy or sick, and we hang on to stuff. But if you're really serious about growth and trying to do something with yourself, you'll seek out new knowledge. You'll listen to new ideas and find ways of replacing the old knowledge. There also has to be a certain security involved here in knowing what you're doing, that you're okay, that that things can get better, and the recognition that it's really possible to do that. The recognition that it's really possible to do that can very simply come through just the meditation, immersion exercises that we were talking about earlier. Any sort of technique that starts to associate the different parts of the brain and self to the individual. The drawing we have of the little head with the material and the spiritual on it, well, it's necessary that you start identifying each one of those areas. We know what our conscious mind is. That's what we use all the time. You need to find your subconscious mind and learn to identify the feeling so you know where it's at. And you need to, know that it's in there and what it does. You need to understand what your psyche is, that it is a collection of your feelings and thinking and thoughts. It's who you are, basically. It's your persona. You need to discover that you are a spiritual self also. That's harder to do. You have to start practicing exercises through meditation to that point where you can actually feel creation, that little touch of eternity that Billy was allowed to touch when he was on the great spacer ship that we've talked about. You need to find out, if you can develop it long enough, that on the spiritual side we have what's called the we form, the spiritual telepathy, so you can start getting in touch even with other life forms, develop your own keys like we talked about earlier, and get into your own Akashic records, studying perhaps your past life and traumas which are making up your present self. Quite often we carry forward trauma from previous lives which we're not aware is influencing who we are today. And if you feel that there's something in there, if there's obviously something about your character or personality which is preventing you from success, it may lie in these areas. Fortunately, most of the time it's nothing more than just not having the tools, the right equipment, the right understanding of how to develop force of thought, how to start controlling our own thinking. I mean, life is really simply nothing more than just how you think. That's all it really is. So what we need to do, if someone in that particular area where they need development, they're having problems getting going, we just need to give them a push in the right direction. And that, of course, is the purpose and the reason why I make tapes on this type of information. Some of the things I say may be helpful. Some of them you might not have any use for. It's like any other information. But you need to find the things in here that are relevant for you and put them to use. If there are certain things that I say, certain passages that I comment on, certain ideas that I bring up that ring a bell, that ring truth with you, wear that tape out. Go over and over it again and again. Order a new one if you need to. Make a copy. But do whatever it takes to go over and over it until it makes sense to you and it provides you the answers that you need. So that's what I mean about pushing someone in the right direction or being an inspiration. Because you have to heal yourself. You have to fix yourself. Someone else can only give you the guidelines by which to do it. We can only feed you the knowledge. I can be an inspiration perhaps, and other people can be an inspiration to people by virtue of their own successes in life, by virtue of their own mental balance. Perhaps their clarity of thought is what you're looking for. Or maybe it's just a few pieces of information that you need to go on with your own path. So whatever it is, take it from someone else, but don't look to someone else as your mentor, your teacher, your guide, or put any responsibility on that other person for taking care of your problems. We all solve our own problems ourselves. I don't believe at all in anybody else leading us, guiding us, or taking us through life. We are here to share, but we got to define these terms properly. We share and help one another, but the responsibility is where we get into trouble. Someone else is not responsible for your life. It's not a God, an angel, a guide, or anybody else. They don't run your life for you. They are not there to do that. It is your responsibility to learn from the inspiration of these people, take the information, and develop yourself. Most importantly, the main reason is, if you don't learn it yourself, if you don't figure it out step by step and make it part of your life, it doesn't stick. It doesn't become part of yourself. You don't really change, and it doesn't become part of your spirit. There will be no spiritual growth unless you earn it and make it part of yourself. So you have to do that. You can't just take advice from someone else and figure that, okay, I got the advice, all right, I'm going to be different from now on. That's only the beginning. Any information, be it advice, a book, tape, film, whatever it is wisdom that makes sense to you, hopefully, that you can use for your own personal growth. Okay? It's because once a person knows with certainty that he can take control of the path of his own life, his character and his destiny once again rise into being a happy individual. Hope springs eternal. How often have you heard that? Hope springs eternal. It's great. Once you know something's going to work, if you got any new plan in life, all right, anything you're going to start on, maybe it's a new job, a new career, a new romance, whatever it's going to be, my, do we get excited. Remember the last time you met somebody brand new and that spark happened and you were just off the ground for a few days, you know, you're in love and your feet don't touch the floor for about every 10 feet. You know, we just feel marvelous, don't we? Well, that's because there's great hope in the idea that we're about to achieve great happiness, isn't there? Most of life is pleasure or pain. We're either looking for it or running from it all the time. So, you know, be aware of that, work around that, and strive to be happy, as it says. Tolstoy said, the human lives of his spirit and not of the body. When he knows that and does not devote his life to the body, but devotes it to the spirit, then you can put him in chains and lock him behind bars, but he will always be free. That's a pretty easy thing to understand. Once you are certain about your spirit and you have that reliance and confidence of self, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference what kind of turmoil is going on in the material world around you. You can still be that beaming light, that inspirational force that moves through life, creating your own path and being happy. Here's a new idea for you. During our physical life term, the material body serves as a dwelling place for the spirit. Now, most of us in the New World or New Age community are going to agree with that, but if you really thought about it a lot, the dwelling place for the spirit. Where is your spirit? Is it in your foot, your hand, your elbow? Have you ever thought about where it is? Have you ever thought of what it might look like? Have you ever considered what your life force might be? Our bodies are electric. There's a pulsing energy that moves through a body that activates all of our little connectors in our brain, which causes all the chemicals to run through our body and keep it going and performing. Have you ever really tried to meditate on the idea of what a spirit might be? If you really are, if all of us really are spiritual beings, then how come we're not more aware of it? Well, go looking for that. You know, that doesn't mean it's not there, but ask yourself these questions sometimes and in your meditations and so forth. Go looking for the answers that yourself and you'll find them. Through thinking, our character, the path of our very life, and the spiritual development are engraved.